Good morning. Is it hot in here or is it just me? There are at least two ways I can introduce myself to you and at least three ways you can choose to address me. You can call me Mr. Santik, or you can call me simply Sasha, or you can use some random noun, buddy, dude, mate, or you can use an adjective. And whatever the choice, it will clearly signal to you and me the kind of relationship we wish to establish between us. So in its introduction in the book of Genesis, what kind of relationship does the Bible hope to establish between God and readers? Verse 1, chapter 1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And I'm not going to torture you by reading the whole chapter, but the gist of it is that the rest of the chapter talks us through a very busy period of this God. Things are happening quickly. God creates, God speaks, God divides, God makes, God sets, God plants, God declares. And we come to the end of chapter 1, and so far, what do we actually know of this God? Apart from the fact that he has the power to create and manipulate time, space, matter. The word God, introduced to us in verse 1, is the same word used from the first to the last verse of Genesis chapter 1. And you know it's the Hebrew word Elohim. And as you know, Elohim carries several meanings, of which the most commonly accepted ones are that of power and authority. So this is someone who demands respect and probably fear. To make an appearance before Mr. Elohim would make me uncomfortable, unsettled. But then, on the seventh day, Elohim ended his work. And Elohim rested on the seventh day from all his work he had done. Then Elohim blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which Elohim had created and made. And this is where the story of Elohim ends, and this is where we start to uncover the puzzle of Mr. Elohim. The word for work used in the opening verse of chapter 2, verses of chapter 2, is the Hebrew word melaka. The word for work, and the best way to understand this word is to look it up, see its meaning in other places in the Bible. For example, in Exodus 31, God is giving instructions for building the tabernacle and tells us how he gifted a certain individual to work in all manner of melaka and make things out of gold, silver, brass, wood, and stone. We also find it in the book of Jonah. In chapter 1, Jonah is on the boat running away from God, and the weather turns. And sailors are casting lots to try and find out why this trouble was upon them. And the lot falls on Jonah, and the sailors ask him, "What is your occupation? What is your melaka?" In Ezekiel 28, we find that Lucifer's melaka was prepared for him on the day he was created. So Lucifer was to occupy a position of the chief musician, and Jonah was offered a job contract which he refused to sign. This brings us back to God. This power and authority seems to have an occupation, a day job. And on the seventh day, Elohim ended his melaka, and he rested from all his melaka. And we could stop here and define God in light of what he does for a living. Or we can continue. On the seventh day, Elohim finished creating by making this one final thing. He made a day of rest. And when you think about it, this act of resting doesn't really make much sense. Does God really need to rest? And what exactly was Adam resting from on day 2 of his life? He had just had an afternoon nap on day 1, followed by a good night's sleep. For crying out loud, he had more sleep in one day than I have for a week. Nevertheless, on the 7th day, Mr. Elohim takes off his work clothes. He steps back and takes a breather. He takes a breather from Melaka, and for the first time, he introduces himself by his first name. And in verse 4, we read, "This is the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created, in the day that Yahweh Elohim made the earth and the heavens." And from here on, Yahweh takes center stage. And here is what chapter 2 has to offer. In summary, I will quickly read. "And Yahweh Elohim made the earth and the heavens, and Yahweh Elohim made mist to water the ground, and Yahweh Elohim planted a garden, and Yahweh Elohim made all vegetation spring up, and Yahweh Elohim formed the animals out of the ground, and Yahweh Elohim formed Adam out of the ground, and Yahweh Elohim offered food to Adam, and Yahweh Elohim brought animals to Adam to name them, and Yahweh Elohim saw that Adam was lonely. And Yahweh Elohim took a rib from Adam, and out of that rib, Yahweh Elohim made a mistake." This is where you learn that relying only on one translation of the Bible can really limit your understanding and get you in trouble. So let's try this again. "And Yahweh Elohim, realizing that something was not quite right, used the man's rib and made the founder of women's ministry." And I expect all the women to say amen. So what is it that chapter 2 is hinting at? I think it introduces a relationship. And if you follow chapter 2 narrative in reverse, it sounds something like this. Without a woman, what is the point of a man? Without humans, what is the point of animals? Without animals and humans, what is the point of plants? Without plants, what is the point of a garden? Without a garden, what is the point of water? Without all these, what is the point of the earth? Without creation, what is the point of Yahweh? For 6 days, Melaka is taking place, but on day 6, creation starts to take a different shape. Things no longer come out of thin air. Yahweh himself forms the animals, shapes them into what they are. He does the same with humans, but adds something extra, infuses them with the flavor of his own image. He puts his masculine attributes into Adam, and he puts his feminine attributes into Eve. And when man and a woman come together they become the image of God. Male and female created he them. And for the first time, Adam and Eve get a chance to learn who Yahweh is. Merciful and gracious, long-suffering, abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin. These are the reasons Jonah refused the job offer. He was hoping to strike a deal with Mr. Elohim. Instead, Yahweh was his line manager. Yes, Yahweh can create. Yes, Yahweh can do magic. But what Yahweh is trying to say is that all of that means nothing to him if he can't spend some quality time with us. All he wants is to be around. Geppetto, as we saw earlier, was able to make a puppet, but the fullness of his work only came about when he was able to interact with his creation. Only when Pinocchio responded to his maker. And to do that, you need to stop tinkering. This is the difficulty that most, if not all, artists experience. At which point is the work of art complete? They need to make that judgment and release their artwork. Ernest Hemingway, for example, said that he rewrote the last page of his novel, A Farewell to Arms, 39 times before he was satisfied. The only way to start and enjoy a meaningful relationship is to stop the melaka and engage. The only way to fully appreciate one another, whether it's your neighbor or Yahweh, is to enter this rest. Remember the 10 Commandments. Which one of them do we remember? Up until Israel's departure from Egypt, who does all the remembering in this relationship? Yahweh remembers Noah. Yahweh actually puts a rainbow in the sky to remind him of his promise. Yahweh remembers Abraham, Lot, Israelites. And after doing all the work, Yahweh is about to turn the table, and along some shell and shell notes we read, remember the Sabbath day. And the tone of this commandment suddenly becomes very different, very personal, an appeal to engage with Yahweh and humans and animals alike. Deuteronomy chapter 5, another call to remember. Remember what exactly? Remember that Elohim rested on the seventh day? Remember that you were a slave in Egypt? Or remember that on the seventh day, Yahweh let go of his day job. He let go of his power and offered you freedom. On day one of creation, was God aware of the horrible future that was about to unfold? Was God aware of it on day 6 when he created animals? Was he aware of it when he created Adam? When he created Eve? So, knowing all this beforehand, God still chose to enter into a relationship with us. He chose to Sabbath with us. Remember me as I remembered you, says Yahweh. So Genesis 1-3 has a very simple story to tell. Chapter 1 is a creation account. Chapter 2, the purpose of creation, Sabbath, establishing a relationship. Chapter 3 is the breakup of that relationship. And from there on, everything else that follows in the Bible is one massive attempt of Yahweh to recover that lost relationship. And this is why the word remember is so important to God in the Sabbath commandment. As if to say, remember the beginning of our relationship, of your relationship. I miss that. I genuinely do, and I hope you do too. Me and my wife had our anniversary 2 weeks ago, at the end of October. Imagine me saying to her, you know, I want to commemorate our wedding anniversary in summer or after Christmas. And at first it may not make much sense to you, but it's the sale season. And I did not think this through. So a little tip for future grooms, when you marry, do it in the sale season and you will save yourself a fortune. It's like anniversary discount for life. However, our anniversary points to something different, something that only the two of us share, for better or worse. The First Amendment of the US Constitution talks about 5 basic freedoms: freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, and freedom to petition. The purpose of any constitution is to protect, but in case it wasn't very clear how, there are amendments to it. Jesus gets a question: which is the greatest commandment of all? And Jesus answers, in case I didn't make myself clear, let me offer you an amendment. You shall love your God with everything you've got and your neighbor as yourself. This short amendment and all of the freedoms therein, I believe, are represented in the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man. Without Sabbath, what is the point of Yahweh? Amen.